Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
We're all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us today in class. And I wanted to say thank you to Rich Eben and Gwyneth. They ran solo this week, did an outstanding job. And class, it's not always easy to broadcast for 2 hours by yourself, and that's what they did. So I wanted to say thank you to Gwyneth and Rich. Outstanding job. And today we've got hour number 1, Cathy in Ohio will be teaching us about domestic engineering, saving money. And hour number 2, Bert in California. Bert Bertonis is going to be interviewing me, asking me all kinds of questions about, I'm not exactly sure about what. I believe it's most likely he'll be talking about preparedness and asking me who, what, when, where, why, and how regarding preparedness, and maybe some things that I have done. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't received any emails saying, hey, Vinny, here's what I'd like to talk about. So I'll find out when you find out. So that'll be live, hour number 2. And so welcome, Cathy. How are you?
Good morning, Vince. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Cathy, I wanted to ask you, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but someday, would you like to take the broadcast solo? Is that something that you'd like to do?
Well, Vince, if I could help you out, I would do it. I do like to talk, so I would try it if you were in that situation. I'm not as experienced as your other instructors, but if you got in a situation, I would do it for you. Yes.
That is so impressive. It really is. And I was telling Jason, who's engineering the broadcast at GCN this morning, that I'm just so delighted that that's who we are. I mean, we just do what we need to do at the time. And for someone, you just called in and I liked you so well that I invited you to be on the air with me, and then more and more and more, and you prepare and you show up on time and you do everything that you would expect an instructor to do. You do it all, and you do it so well. And I thought I would just ask you, and so there's the answer, class. That is indicative of who we are. And so, as a teacher, a non-degreed teacher. So I don't have a degree in education. I've never been trained on how to be a teacher. I'm just figuring it out on the fly. But as a teacher, I am so impressed when students become instructors and instructors lead the class. I mean, it's the ultimate for me as a teacher to watch this happen. And you just heard it happen live on radio. So, Cathy, what do you have for our class today? Where would you like to go?
Well, Vince, I just wanted to say that the feeling was mutual. The first time I talked to you, you were just so easy to talk to. And I think sometimes you just know when you first meet someone that you have almost like this could be a friendship. And to me, that's what it is. And I appreciate everything you've done for us all, instructors and students.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's a passion that I have. I can't explain why, but I can tell you this, Cathy, and I don't think I've ever asked you this, but I've asked all the instructors over the years, over the roughly 10 years, and I've asked it this way, and I've asked myself this, and the question is, have you felt some inner guidance, some kind of a presence that has directed you to be an instructor and share information? Now, the answer for every single one that I've asked has said yes. How about you?
Yes, I have. I never expected when I called. It was just sort of a random, innocent call, but it was something I kind of felt led to do. And then I think for me, it was like as I got older, I noticed my kids would call and they'd say, Mom, I have a friend and they have this problem or they have this issue, or do you have any remedies for a cold or a sore throat? And I kept getting all these calls from people, and I thought, well, maybe they just have tried some of the things I've said and it worked. And so when I talked to you, it was just sort of like a progression. Like, I was extremely nervous at first, but I guess I just decided, well, if I can help somebody, then that's where I'm at. So.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that it worked out that way. So what is on the blackboard for today? What would you like to start with?
I have some ideas for things for Christmas that if somebody would like to buy something, as far as being prepared. I have some ideas and thoughts about just a few garden things that you can still do, or if you don't, like, there might be some people that have maybe are in zone 6 or 7 that are still dealing with the garden, or you can use them for next year. I have some ideas about things I've seen at the store and what I'm seeing and not seeing, and some of the things that I've purchased. Okay. The thing for Christmas, I bought they're a pair of scissors, and they're called a 5-blade pair of scissors. And they actually cut, like if you want to cut green onion tips or chives or herbs that are long and stringy, they work beautifully. And so I bought a pair of those, and they came with a little metal, it looks like a disc, and it's got little holes in it, and it's called a leaf stripper. And so you can use it for fresh or dehydrated or herbs. And like, let's say you have rosemary. Well, if you use your hands and you're stripping a lot of rosemary, it wears on your fingers and it's hard, but they've got different holes. And I dehydrated a whole bunch of herbs, and I just hadn't had a chance to strip them. And the holes are real tiny. They're probably, the smallest one's probably like 1/8 of an inch, and it goes up to about 1/2 inch. So you can just run your herbs right through that. So you can strip oregano or basil or any of your things that you've dried. You can even do it fresh too. And those run together, I think it ran like $15, $16, but you can buy them separately too. But that was a nice thing, and it saves me a lot of time for all the fresh garden produce and the herbs that I had. The other thing that I would recommend is there's a, with the way our situation is today, we don't know whether we're going to get locked down again or whether we can even afford to go to the doctor. So I've gotten a few things. They make massage balls that you can, like, roll against, or you can rub or lay on them. And sometimes you have what I've learned are called, like, trigger points. And it'll be like one spot that's really sore. It might be in the middle of your back or on your hip. Well, you can roll on those, and some of them are smooth, some are spiky, and there's one called a Moby. It's M-O-B-I. I think it's called a Moby Point trigger ball, and that one is really good for your feet. I know you can get them online, and you can get them at Dick's Sporting Goods. I checked online, and Dick's online was out. I did find one on Amazon, but you can roll them on the arches of your feet and go like horizontal, and it'll break up, like if you have foot cramps or like a tendon that's sore or injury. A lot of times they're really good for breaking up like scar tissue or an injury, a problem. So those are some things I think that if we can do some of those things ourselves, if we can't go, I bought some DVDs, some exercise videos. Like, I'm kind of thinking like self-help. Like there's some for stretching and strengthening. There's certain ones you can get, like I've got some back DVDs. Some are back exercises, some combine yoga or like core exercises like Pilates, but I found that those really help, that I can do that myself. So I think that would be imperative to have those on hand, because if you can't go to the gym or you don't want to go or you can't go to the doctor, at least if you have some strengthening or physical therapy type DVDs that you can maybe help fix some physical problems or help strengthen you yourself.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vin.
No, that's great. Please continue.
The other thing is I asked my husband to buy me. I was watching a video, and the man he's called M.I. Gardner. It's Michigan Gardner. And he's real close to the type of weather that I have. It's like the same zone. And he had a video, and he bought a small distiller, and he bought it for making essential oil because he has a lot of herbs. And he actually showed it. It was very easy, and he had mint. And he took the mint, and he put it in, and he showed how the oil drips out into like a container. And I thought that for me, I have so much oregano and rosemary and lavender and mint, and I just have so many herbs that a lot of times I just don't know what to do with it all. So I thought if I made my own oregano oil, which is a very good antiviral, antibiotic type oil and an immune. Now, it's very strong, so that you have to know how to dilute it and use it. But I'm thinking ahead, like, well, if I can't get it at the store or the price gets so high, I can dilute or use these and distill them myself. So I did ask for that for Christmas, and it was right around $100. And it's a 3-gallon distiller. Now, most people that use distillers, I'm sure they use them for making wine or alcohol, which I don't know that I'll do that because I don't really use that. But it would be something for me to look into in the event that I can't get the other product.
Okay. So when you make, when you're going to use this distiller, is this something that goes on the stove? Do you use it with a gas stove? Do you use it outside? Do you make a fire? What do you use for the heat source for your distiller?
It was on a stove, and it hooks up.
Okay.
It's got a pot, and then it's got a little piece that goes on top, and like a tube that drips into a little cup, so you can get the oil from out.
Okay, very good. We'll be right back with Cathy. So what else can you use a distiller for? Well, class, we have an off-grid solar system. Off-grid, on-grid, hybrid. And it uses about 10 gallons of distilled water every few months. So that's an enormous amount of distilled water. My thoughts were, what happens? What happens when I can't get distilled water for 88 cents a gallon at Menards or the Chinese factory outlet? Well, I mean, I'd hate to not have electricity because of something as simple as not having distilled water. And if I use tap water, which is from our well, it has lots of lime in it and calcium, and that would destroy the cells, the nickel iron cells. So I went to Craigslist and I found a guy who was selling a distiller. It's all stainless steel, but it didn't work. But he had 2 more just like it. So I bought all 3 of them, and I haven't put them together yet, but I hope I can make 2 out of the 3. So yeah, a distiller is something you might want to think about. And what can you distill? A lot of things. Water. You can, make your own spirits. I mean, alcohol. You can do all that with a distiller. So you might want to look into one for yourself. So, back to you, Cathy.
Well, Vince, that was my thinking. When I watched the video, it sort of intrigued me, and he had tested a few of them, and this was one that it was moderately priced. It's not a high-end one, but I'm not that experienced, so I didn't want to spend a lot of money on something that maybe I wouldn't really use or didn't feel like, it was paid for itself. So I thought, well, just if I can learn to do it, that's where I was on it. The other products that I was thinking of, and you're looking at like long-term foods. I haven't tried these. These are a few things that I have asked for Christmas for myself also. I've never tried them, but I've read reviews and I've listened to people doing some of the reviews on them. And there's a place called Augustin Farms, and they make like dehydrated or freeze-dried foods. And if you don't open them, a lot of those cans will last for 10, 20 years. So I got to thinking about if some of the things I use all the time, one of them was a butter powder. And that one got good reviews, and they showed how they used it. So a lot of people said they could use it in bread making, if they could substitute it for butter, if they were short on butter. People used it. You have to mix it with water, but that was one that I'm going to try. The other one was a lemon. I got a big 5-pound can of like lemon peel and dehydrated lemon, and it was organic. Because, if we get in a situation, I don't grow lemons. I'm not in the climate to grow lemons, but it's good to use it for lemon water, or for the vitamin content, the vitamin C that we may need. So, and that's a long-term storage thing. And if I open it, I can always put it in jars and use my vacuum sealer on it too, or my brake leader, and use it in a jar. So those were two things that I thought. And they also had a tomato powder that people raved about. I've never tried it, but they said it's very useful, especially if you don't have enough products. You can mix it with water and you get the tomato flavor. It makes a sauce or a juice. So anyway, that was a couple things on the Christmas list. And my children had all asked for, instead of getting things like DVDs and things like that, they're all getting some sort of tool or a household item, a very useful, which I almost look at it as a prepper item. And that was all on their own. They all came up with these on their own. So I think even my children are starting to think long-term that way, too.
Very interesting that you said it that way. Class, Cathy used a term, and I don't know if you heard it clearly or not. The term was mighty vac. I'm going to spell this for you. It's sometimes it's spelled one word, sometimes it's two words. MITYVAC. So it's MITYVAC or MITY space VAC. It's an automotive tool. It's used for bleeding brakes. It's a hand pump. You squeeze these two levers, and it will create vacuum. And Cathy uses that to evacuate the air out of things she wants to preserve. We'll be right back. Cathy's with us. Class, I was listening intently to the bottom of the hour news and commercial announcements, and right here at USA Prepares from GCN. And I heard something that was quite startling to me. Now, I want you to listen to the seventh word that I'm about to say. Ready? Okay. The Red Cross wants you to donate. Seventh word is donate. Part of your body, your blood, so that they can sell it to companies that make a globulin product and then sell it to corona victim patients. So the Red Cross wants you to give them the raw material, donate your blood so that they can sell it, meaning the Red Cross can sell it to companies that will make a product to treat corona victim patients. So I just want to let you know that that's what the Red Cross does. So don't think that they're this wonderful organization. They're a corporation. They're in business to get things for free and then sell them. So that's what the Red Cross does. And my uncles who were in World War II despised the Red Cross. Because what they did was they would get coffee donated from the coffee manufacturers in the United States, and then the Red Cross would heat that up and mix it with a little bit of water and then sell it to the GIs. The Red Cross. Taking your donations and making a profit under the guise of being this nice organization. So they figured out how to do it, and they've been doing it for a long time. Cathy, you mentioned some Christmas gifts. I've got a couple I just wanted to share very quickly. There's a great book that I have in our library. It's called the Black and Decker, the color black, and Decker, Complete Guide to Home Wiring. It's $5.36, available on eBay, shipped. That's going to be used, but it is a fabulous book. I've recommended it many times here on USA Prepares. So for those who want to learn how to fix those light switches and sockets and they want to know how their breaker panel works, it is fabulous. It's world-class, best in class. $5.36 used. I just bought another one. Why? I know there's someone who's going to need it. I just don't know who it is yet. And as far as DVDs, if you can find the series Jericho, it is about what happens in a small village in Kansas when the country loses its electricity and the takeover begins. And it's neighbor against neighbor. It's neighbors working together, neighbors fighting each other. And you get a chance to see the what humanity devolves to. Another one is Combat. C-O-M-B-A-T, exclamation point. I'm watching it for the second time. There's 5 years worth in the complete series. The first 4 years are black and white. It's from the 1960s. It is, it's set in France toward the end of World War II, and it will show you how miserable things can get and how desperate people can get and how poor people can be when everything that they built up has been removed from them. Either it's been taken at the muzzle of a gun or it's been obliterated with bombs, mortars, cannons, rifle shots, pistol shots, hand grenades, and composition 4, C4, or composition 2, explosives, high explosives. So just a thought, you might want to consider that and sharing that with your family, because it will help you prepare for what I believe is coming. And I mentioned that we are in the Second American Revolution combined with the Second Civil War, and it hasn't gotten quite hot yet. Normally I am wrong in terms of timing. I expect it to happen sooner than it does. But I still believe that it is on its way in a more violent way. I believe that the shooting will begin more and more and more as we go down the road, because the president has not left office. Now, either he'll be thrown out or he will stay. If he's thrown out, there'll be an escalation in violence. If he stays, there'll be an escalation in violence. So that's my thinking. Cathy, any comments?
Those are good ideas, Vince, because I think if you can visualize the reality of what can happen, I do think it changes your mindset. It helps you to prepare.
Yes. Yeah. So, class, what we're talking about is, the bottom line, I guess you can say, is if you meet with your family and you have dinner with them tonight, and we're starting to have more and more of these meetings because more and more of our children are moving in with mom and dad. That's what's happening by necessity because of who has a job? Hardly anybody has a real job anymore. And so there's more time for the 1950s and the 1960s style family. And that's what we have here at our farm. You know, the children live with us and they participate in farming. And heck, they're going to inherit the farm. I mean, if we can hold on to it. So it's to their benefit. It's to everybody's benefit to work together. Everybody realizes that. So we don't waste anything. We don't, there are no frills here. We don't have any desire to go to the movies. I mean, really? Wow. If I had a choice between spending, I don't even know how much a movie costs, but if I had a choice between buying a used video of the movie or going to the movies, I would rather have the used video because I could watch it again. And I can make my own popcorn, which is darn close to being free. I think you can make popcorn if you buy a bag of popcorn and a pat of butter for about 10 cents. I imagine that's probably $5 or more at the movie theater. And then if you want more, you can make another 10-cent pot of popcorn. Put a little salt on it if that's what you want. So the simple things, I think that's where we're headed, Cathy, going back to a more simple life as a result of the corona panic. Any thoughts?
Yeah, Vince, because I think we're going to be forced to, or maybe people are going to realize, let's get what's important. And you mentioned having a family meeting. I had my children over and grandchildren over for Thanksgiving, and we said our prayer. And at the end of the prayer, we were all standing in a circle and, you know, thanking God for our food, and we got all done. And my one son said, with everybody there, okay, we need to talk about what are we going to do if all this escalates and we have rioting. Where are we going to go? And what are we going to bring? And so we had a discussion about it. So I didn't prompt it. It was on his mind. And so we sort of have formed a plan of what we're going to do. So I love it.
I love it. I really do. That, Cathy, that's what we've been talking about for years, having those kinds of discussions where everybody in the boat is pulling his own weight and wants to, without dissension. Did everybody agree with your son? Did everybody say, yeah, let's talk about it? And okay. And did logic prevail? Meaning, did the best recommendations, were they adopted?
Yeah, because they're going to come to our house because we have land, we have water, we have a well, we have a barn. We can grow things. We're out. You know, we're not in a subdivision or in the city. And they all agreed that ours would be the best place to go. And so that, you know, and everybody agreed. We don't have the biggest house, but we can accommodate the family if we need to.
Yeah. Well, you know, I keep going back to Combat, that television series. Class, if you watch Combat, you'll see some of these French farmhouses, and they were Spartan. There was hardly anything there, very little furniture. The water came from outside. You had to go get it and bring it into the house. There were no flushing toilets. There's no fancy paintings on the wall. No fancy curtains. I mean, it was as basic as you could get. And people lived like that. Very few tractors, very few mechanized pieces of equipment. It was horses. We're talking about 1944. Horses. And farming was done by hand. And people got along just fine. They didn't have clothing that they could change 3 times a day like the Kardashians. They had, one jacket, maybe a couple pairs of pants, maybe a couple shirts, maybe 1 pair of shoes. That's the way it was. And they got along just fine. So I think we're going back to basics because of necessity. So I hope you have that meeting with your family and let everybody contribute. For example, Cathy, yesterday, I mentioned probably a week ago that I bought a farm bell. And you've seen these are those, they weigh about 53 pounds. Is made, the one I have was made in Ohio, out your way. It's made by the Crystal Metal Company, Crystal Metal Company. And it's a number 2 farm bell. It weighs 53 pounds, and it's made out of cast iron. They started making them in 1850 for about 50 years. So 1850 to 1900. So if you have one of the newest ones, it's going to be 120 years old. If you have one of the original models, it's going to be 170 years old. Have you seen these, Cathy?
I don't think so, Vince. I don't think I know. Maybe if I saw a picture, I can't visualize seeing it right now.
It's a great big bell, and it sits on a post, and it has typically would have a rope. So let's say it might be 8 feet up in the air. And what would happen is if you wanted to call the family back to the kitchen for lunch, you ring the bell because they're out in the field. You know, they're working in the field back in the 1800s. So I found one of these and I bought it. And I wanted to put it on a post, and there are several locations where we could put it on our farm. Well, but that's not what I did. What I did was I had the whole family. I said, okay, where do you think this bell should go? I asked everybody. Called everybody around and said, here's the bell. We can put it on a post. We can hang it off the side of the house. And in a lot of ways we can mount this. We can mount it on an iron post, a steel post. We can build a concrete post. We can take some wood, make a form, fill it with rebar and concrete, and make a concrete post, you know, like they have in cities, lamp posts, or they used to. Or we can buy a pressure-treated post. What do you think we should do? And where should it go? And I got everybody's agreement so that no one can say, why'd you put it there? What's the matter with you? So that's the way we do things here. Everybody agrees. And this is just about a simple farm bell. And why did I buy the farm bell? Because I want to make sure that in really bad times, if I need to call a family or they need to call me, they can ring the bell. And you can hear this thing for about a mile. Literally. So if you want to look it up, it's the farm bell, number 2. You'll find it on the internet. Cathy's with us, and we're talking about domestic engineering. She's our domestic engineering instructor. Cathy, I wanted to share something with the class. One of the things I'm concerned about going forward is hygiene. And so that soap is a big deal. You know, we don't really think of soap, but you just have it, right? Well, what if you run out of it? That would be a big problem. So the place to buy soap, I believe, the best bang for the buck I have found is Sam's Club. And they have a soap called Dial. It's made by a company called Dial, D-I-A-L. And they have it in yellow and they have it in blue. Now the blue bar or the blue wrapper is actually white in color. The soap is white in color. And it's called Dial Antibacterial Deodorant Soap. Spring water. 4 ounces, 22 in a package, $8.98. So it comes out to 41 cents a piece, which I think is a pretty good value. But it stinks. Now they have it in yellow. It doesn't smell quite as bad as the blue does, the blue wrapper, but the yellow comes off on your skin and your towels will turn kind of a tannish brown color. And you'll wonder, what the heck happened to these towels? Well, it's the soap. It's the dye in the soap. So the white soap, which is in the blue package called spring water, I think is the best way to go. But it stinks. It's heavily, heavily, heavily perfumed. So I've tried all kinds of things. I'd put it in a car outside, and we have an old Mercedes ML320 with a hatchback, and so I put it in a bucket. I take them out of the package, put them in a bucket. I leave them in the individual wrappers, but I take them out of the case wrapping, put them in a 5-gallon bucket, and it takes weeks and weeks for some of the smell to volatilize. And it's so strong that it will chase me right out of the bathroom if we stored, 22 of these in a package in the bathroom. So what I do is I put them in this car and I let the smell volatilize mostly, but it still stinks. So then what I do is when I bring it in the house, I'll wrap it in a Ziploc bag to keep the smell from escaping because it's that powerful. So if you put it in a drawer or cabinet in the bathroom, it'll still chase you out. And I thought, what do we do with this? Well, there's a great answer. I use it to keep the mice away from our equipment in the barns. and the cars that we don't happen to be driving at the moment. So in the trunk, a couple bars. Under the seat, a couple bars. On top of the air cleaner, under the hood, a couple bars. Nobody likes it. The mice don't like it. The rodents don't like it. The opossums don't like it. And now that soap is a tax deduction because of the use. So when I get audited, I'm looking forward to this auditor saying to me, Mr. Finelli, you have declared dial soap as a tax deduction. How do you figure that? I'll say, well, how many did I buy? Wow, it looks like you bought $100 worth. Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, I use it to keep the animals from eating our equipment in the barns and our farm equipment. So now what would normally be something that's not tax deductible, to me is tax deductible because of the way I'm using it. Now, I might later on decide that, well, I guess I'll use it for soap. But right now, I'm using it to keep the animals away. Cathy, your thoughts on that?
Well, Vince, I wondered, you had mentioned it to me before about the yellow coming off because my husband uses dial. And the next time that I order from Sam's, I'm going with the blue because, and I will open it up. Maybe I can just open it up and put it outside if it's a nice sunny day and let some of the smell go away. But you're right. That's a good deal for the size soap that you have.
Yeah, and soap used to be 5 ounces, class. Actually, used to be 8 ounces. Some of them, like the Fells Naphtha, and the Octagon soap used to be about 8 ounces. And they improved it. The marketing people and the accountants got involved and it got down to 5 ounces. And now, it's down to 3.2 ounces. So you take 5 ounces minus 20%, you get 4 ounces. You take, 4 ounces minus 20%, you get 3.2 ounces. So pretty soon we're going to have the fun size. And, that'll be like the, the motel size where it's about the size of a domino. That's what marketing and accounting has done to us. What's next, Cathy?
Vince, I wanted to quickly mention a couple things, what you can do, like at the stores and if and when you go. Every store has a markdown clearance section, a grocery store. And I went to a health food store the other day, and I could not believe the markdowns that they had. And some of the products were nearing expiration, and some had just expired. But there were some $35 products marked down to $1 and $2. It was great. But if you look around your grocery stores or your outlet stores, they all have markdowns. And if you can take advantage of it and stock up when you see it, if you go now. I know a lot of people aren't, but I did have to go for a couple things that I couldn't find online.
Those are really good points. And what you can do is wrap them so that there's less air exchange. So you put it in an old spaghetti, a clean, washed out spaghetti jar with the rubberized lid, the way they used to come in glass, and keep the air from exchanging, and those products will last even longer. Cathy, thanks so much for being with us. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ben. Bye.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. This hour, I'll be broadcasting with a very dear friend of almost 50 years. Welcome, Bert Bertonis.
Hello, Vin. Happy holidays.
Yeah, it's great to hear your voice. And so, Bert, this hour, this will be the second time that you'll be interviewing me. I'm not exactly sure what you're going to be asking me, but here I am. And let me just say, class, for those of you who are new to the class, Bert Bertonis is a radio frequency engineer. He's an electronics engineer. He's designed all kinds of really neat circuits. And he has patents on some of them. Bert, I've got just noticed that Gwyneth Isaacs is calling in from Australia. Let's just take this call very quickly. Gwyneth, welcome. You're on with Bert Bertonis.
Hi. Sorry, this is not particularly related to electronics, but it is important. The president in the last day or two had a press conference, and it wasn't widely reported. It was about 45 minutes long, and he basically said if this whole election situation wasn't sorted out, that he would go the route of martial law. So this has not really left the inside of me since I heard him say that. And I thought that I haven't heard anybody else really speak about it. Alex Jones mentioned it in passing, but he didn't really, dwell on it either. But I think the rest of the class needs to take this as a massive heads up that even if Trump successfully even if he challenges the electoral results, that this has the potential to go south very, very quickly. And, I'm not against, Republicans in the United States. I'd certainly rather deal with them than Democrats. But people need to not clap like trained seals when their team captain proposes such a draconian measure. That's just what I'd like to say.
I got a call. Gwyneth, I appreciate you calling in with that news flash. Rich Sheben called me and quite alarmed yesterday afternoon with exactly the same news. Yeah. And he was going to call in with just as you, and both of you are just on top of it. And you're absolutely right. So what may happen is we may go into martial law. There may be another election. There may be a showdown. And to use Rich Sheben's terminology, this may go hot very quickly. And that would be what I had been talking about. And that's what I had been talking about. And you've been talking about it with me on the air, that the Second American Revolution combined with the Second Civil War has already begun. And I absolutely positively believe it will escalate. And when will it escalate? I don't know exactly. But as we get closer toward the day when Jumpin' Joe the plagiarist says he wants the transfer of power. That's the word he used, transfer of power. Okay? Well, I think maybe leadership would be a little more polite, but that's the way those guys think. Power. They want power over us. And not everybody wants their brand of power. So I think it's going to get worse quickly. I have not changed my tune about that as well. But I appreciate your call, Gwyneth. Anything else?
No, that's fine. I'll let you get on with whatever you want to talk about. So, like I say, it's the sort of thing where I just, I had this dream, and it was just like Scarlet Pimpernel level, French Revolution level. And I had been watching the movie Scarlet Pimpernel, but the fact that it found its way into my dreams just like went forward, and I woke up and I was just thinking of the White House press conference that he had, and it was just completely unreported, except on the Alex Jones show. To his they reported it. Okay. Well, God bless.
God bless. I'll see you next Wednesday.
Okay.
All right, that was Gwyneth Isaacs with that report, and it's pretty frightening. Back to you, Bert. You were going to interview me.
May we live in interesting times.
We certainly do. Frightening times, and gun sales are way, way, way up. Ammunition is getting harder and harder to get, if you can get it at all. People are worried everywhere.
Let's take a little bit of a turn and to another topic. What I thought we'd talk about, and a lot of the audience might be fascinated, is what it's like to move to a new town, really new part of the country, and buy some land and build your own home. I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you and the missus and the family, you came over on the great stagecoach and got some Missouri farmland and built a new homestead, correct?
That's absolutely right. You know, Bert, we saw this coming around the end of the 90s. We saw that unrest was coming, and we lived on the East Coast. too close to Washington, D.C. And we saw that the police presence was getting stronger and stronger, and there were gauntlets, and I just didn't like it. And some people thought, well, that's good, cops are stopping people and making sure they're not drunk, while they're behind the wheel. Well, I didn't like the fact that they were stopping me and my family because I wasn't doing anything that was worthy of being stopped for. And as I saw more and more police presence, and I saw more and more taxation, I saw more and more potential for unrest and violence, decided to get out of Dodge. So we lived on a farm in Virginia, and Mrs. Finelli and I got in the truck, and we drove around. We looked at maps first, and we looked at where is a good place to live, and what are the criteria? Low taxes. Low taxes means low population. Low taxes means not a lot of services. Low taxes means probably no traffic lights, sidewalks, not police on every corner, not restaurants everywhere. Low taxes means freedom from government help because you pay for that government help that you get, and then you get a small amount of what you pay for back in terms of sidewalks, water mains, sewers, those kinds of things. So we drove around and we looked for a place that didn't have electric substations, nuclear reactors, industrial waste, etc., that wouldn't be downwind from too many reactors because they're everywhere. There are 104 reactors in this country. And we found that in rural Missouri. Low taxes, not a lot happening. And we found a place, 241 acres. And it had a small house on it at one time, and that burned down. So there was no house. And that was perfect for us because the farm was run down. It was neglected for at least a couple decades. It was overgrown with saplings. And the price was relatively low because it took too much work to fix it up. So that's what we bought. And then we made our own mistakes, meaning we built our own house in exactly the location on that 241 acres that we wanted. We didn't buy someone else's mistakes. We made our own mistakes. Built the house exactly where we wanted on the land that we wanted. And it worked out okay. And you've been here.
What happened to the burnt down old house? Did you ever take away the debris?
Well, we didn't have to because it burned down. It burned down. And it probably burned down 15 or 20 years before we bought the place. So there's no really evidence of an old house being there, a small house, except for an old sidewalk, a walk from the road, the dirt road, probably 150 feet to the front door where the front door of this house would have been. But there is a storm shelter built in the 1930s. And this storm shelter is, I think it's roughly 8 feet wide by 12 feet long. And it's it looks like a coffin. Looks like a coffin with the lid sticking out of the ground a little bit. And, and it's got a slanted door like a Bilco, B-I-L-C-O door, old basement door style. It's kind of slanted so the water will run off it. You lift up this wooden door and you jump in there and you wait till the tornado ends. And that's what it was. It's a tornado shelter. So that's probably the best description of our farm. Just half of it is woods and half of it is pasture. And it's fenced and cross-fenced, and we improved the land by mowing and mowing and mowing with a heavy-duty equipment. The mower that we bought to cut down those saplings is the kind that road crews use. It's 15 feet wide. It's called a bat wing, B-A-T, as in the animal, bat wing mower, and you pull it with a 100 horsepower tractor, and it'll mow down 6-foot trees. Any comments on that?
Very interesting. So.
Hey, Bert?
So you raise cattle, and I'm going to guess that you plant some foods there as well.
Oh yeah, we've built several gardens, and each time we build a garden, we make it bigger. So we have a garden for potatoes, we have a fenced-in garden, and it's probably 30-something feet wide by maybe 60-something feet long. And we fenced that in with cattle panels. And cattle panels are about 52 inches high. They're kind of a heavy fabric, roughly 4-inch by 6-inch squares of heavy welded wire. And they don't quite stand up by themselves. But if you made a circle with them, if you took 3 of them together and made like a circle, it would stand up by itself. But what we've done is we've driven in those green posts and wired those cattle panels on the green posts. They're called fence posts. And that keeps most of the animals out of the garden, keeps the deer out. So, we get to eat most of what we plant, tomatoes and peppers and etc. So, yeah, we have a garden, we raise our food, and we raise cows. And the cows make more cows. And we save the seeds so that we can replant the same kind of plants that we took out of the garden last season. So we raise a lot of our own food, and we raise beef.
And I'm assuming that you're doing organic and sustaining fertilizing from other shows that I've listened to. Yeah. We use we have a compost pile, and we use the cow manure, and we have equipment to spread the cow manure. So what we do is we let the cows poop, and then we spread it around as fertilizer. We'll be right back. Bert Bertonis is with us, and he's interviewing me, asking me questions about why we did certain things and how we did certain things. So I just described how we found our farm. And Mrs. Finelli and I got in the truck, and we drove about 20,000 miles. That's not an exaggeration. We looked everywhere. And, first we started with the maps, and we looked at weather patterns, and we looked at tax structure, and then we made phone calls, and then we traveled to look at some of these farms. And we decided that the only way to do it for us was to build our own farmhouse, because we've never seen a house around here on the East Coast that was a used house that didn't have lots of mistakes. Lots of mistakes in plumbing, heating, electrical, location, well, whatever the property was, it was replete with mistakes. So we decided that we would take all of the knowledge that we've gained over the years of living in different houses and visiting people's homes, just as a normal course of living, that we would just put all that information together and make the best of the best decisions. And that's what we built. We built our own house. So, Vince, let me ask you a really basic question. So, you're going to move to this lot of property. You're going to build a nice house. Do you hire a home designer? Do you look on the internet for plans for a house the size you want? I know some people do that and buy the plans. Or you just start putting up beams and figure it out as you go. And how do you start to build your home?
Okay. Well, the reason that there are building plans is typically, and you and I went to school with some architects, and we know how they studied, and we know how detailed and how time-consuming it is to make plans. Well, they are skilled in the understanding of dimensional lumber, stresses, loads, etc. And they know how to build and how to use materials that will withstand stresses and weather, etc. So it's clear to me that it makes the most sense to build from a set of plans. But what kind of plans? Well, I looked on the internet at, Mrs. Finelli and I probably bought 20 or 30 books, house plan books, and we looked at every single picture, every floor plan, and we didn't like any of them. There were some that, we were okay, but some of them were avant-garde. They were modern design. And the problem with a non-traditional design, a modern design, is they go out of style in about 10 years. So if you look at those houses that, are built and you go, wow, that's a really neat design. That's, up to the minute in styling. Well, you look at it 10 years from then and you go, wow, boy, it sure looks dated. Kind of like 1970s furniture, the oranges and the reds and the stripes, and you go, wow, why would anybody like that? But back in the 70s, it was in vogue, right? Well, we looked at lots of books, and ultimately we found a set of plans on the internet that we liked. And they were expensive. The plans were over $2,000 for this particular house. However, if you build a house, probably more like $2,500. I'll bet you it's $3,500 today for the plans for this house. I'm not exaggerating. And now, if you build, and our house is very complicated, class. Bert, how would you describe our house?
Very traditional. I mean, you go in the door and it's pretty obvious. You can go one direction and get to the kitchen. As I remember, the rooms were large and airy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have an attic. The roof is the ceiling. Okay. So our house is open. If you want to see what it looks like, class, I'm not going to give you exactly what it looks like, but I'll tell you this. If you go to your favorite search engine, you type in French farm house or French farmhouses, you will see a bunch, probably a couple hundred images of French farmhouses. And what you'll see is very steep roofs, very steep. And you'll see exquisite design in terms of eye appeal. And you will see, when you look at the inside, you'll see that there are not a lot of rooms. There's big rooms, but not many of them. And our house is probably 3 country French farmhouses stuck together in different orientations. And it's very complex. Bert, you touched on some very interesting points, and I mentioned taxes. And for our class, this may be new information to you, but here's how it works. Agricultural land is taxed at a different rate from residential land, which is taxed at a different rate from commercial land. So agricultural land is taxed at the lowest amount. Residential is much, much higher, maybe 50 times higher, 50 times higher. So the way the tax structure works here is, I mentioned 241 acres. So 240 acres is considered agricultural or farmland at the lowest tax structure in the county. Then the house sits on what the government says is 1 acre. And they tax us at easily 50 times more for that 1 acre than for any other acre of the 241 acres. Well, I've decided that, who do they think they are telling me that I live on 1 acre? Well, our house sits on probably half an acre. So I'm going to reduce that by 50%, that high taxation rate. So what I'm saying is, if you look at how we live and if you apply some of the principles and it's in the tax code, they just don't tell you this is how to do it. You have to figure out for yourself this is how to do it. But what you can do is have a lot of land and have animals maintain that land for you. All you have to do is fence them in. So we maintain the fences. The cows maintain the fields, and they fertilize the fields organically. They pee and poop on it. And then we spread that around with our tractors, and we have something called a chain harrow. Looks like a real heavy chain link fence, 10 feet by 10 feet. We pull it around with an antique tractor, a 1974 Ford 3000 tractor. I pull it around and spread the manure around and fertilize the fields. So the whole point is we have, a lot of land per se, and the cows give us the tax deduction. The cows, when we sell them, they pay for the land and the taxes and the maintenance, and they give us a little money on the side, on a good year. So that's how it works. We just play by the government's rules. Bert, back to you.
Yeah, so very interesting. So while you were talking, a call came into the panel with a question for you. You can decide if you want to answer it or not, but here it goes. Concrete slab or pier and beam foundation, which is better, and which one did you use for your house?
Neither.
Sure.
Now, we use neither. Now, concrete slab is great, except it's cold. You know, if you live in a cold area, you're going to be conducting the heat away from the inside of the house into the ground. The ground is a huge heat sink. Huge. So unless you really insulate the concrete slab well, it's not suitable for where we are. If you have piers, that's great in some respects because you're off the ground, but then animals can get under there and then you have to kind of insulate that. So what we did was we thought a basement was the way to go. Now, the two ways of building a basement that I can think of. One way is with concrete blocks, and you assemble them and mortar them together. And sometimes you fill those concrete blocks with vermiculite for insulation. Other times you fill them with concrete and rebar so they don't break. And other times you just leave them alone and just leave the voids as air insulation. We did neither of those. What we did was we dug down really deep. We excavated and we poured a 2-foot wide footer, 18 inches thick. And then we set concrete walls on top of the footer. Now, the concrete walls in our house are a foot thick. Typically, 8 inches is what most people do. Some go 10 inches. We went 12 inches. So we built, we have a basement, and the walls are a foot thick, and they're poured. So what happens is we built forms, and we tied all these forms together, and then we had many concrete trucks deliver the concrete and fill those forms that are 12 inches wide with concrete. That's how we did it.
So let me ask an obvious question, and I'm sure it's been solved because so many homes with basements. But how do you keep the center of the home from collapsing into the basement? What do you use to support all that weight in the center portions of the home?
Okay, typically a home can, if you notice, homes will have walls about around 15 feet apart, typically at the maximum. And that's because many homes used 2 by 12 or 2 by 10 dimensional lumber as floor joists, and they're 16 feet long. So if you have a 6-inch overlap or 6 inches on the wall on the outside, you have lally columns in the basement supporting the other end, which would give you about a 15-foot space for each room, typically maximum. We didn't do that. What we did was we used what's called I-joists. Now, I-joists are structurally engineered, and you can span about 32 feet with an I-joist without any support in the basement at all.
Wow.
No support. Yeah. So that's what we have.
There's no
what it really is the combination of plywood and oriented strand board, OSB, with plywood on the top and bottom. And it's very, very strong when it's in place. It's really weak while it's being assembled. So it's a great, great way to go, I think. So that's what we use.
Can steel be used, or is that just too expensive?
Absolutely.
When planning?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, initially, I was going to use a webbed steel for the trusses, and I decided not to because of cost. And I thought that, we have a lot of beams in this house, a lot of I-beams, but we don't have any steel. And you can use something else. Let's see, it's a laminate product. It's called LVL, and you can go a really long span, and it takes the place of a steel I-beam. So you can do that. So we have some of those as well. But in terms of our garage, in terms of our basement, it's all clear span. No supporting walls anywhere in the basement, nor in the garage. So we have a garage that will support, you put 3 cars in the garage, and there's not a single post anywhere inside, the 4 walls.
And I'm assuming the garage is built on a concrete slab.
Well, actually, yeah, that's kind of, I engineered that. We raised the whole house up so that we could put an automotive shop in our house. So we have a 3-car garage in the house as part of the house. And so at ground level, you drive into one of 3 garage doors. And I wanted to put an automotive lift in one of those bays. Now, in order to do that, it's recommended that you have 4 inches of concrete with rebar in order to set these automotive lift posts. And the kind we have is made by Rotary. That's the brand, Rotary. And I didn't think 4 inches was anywhere near sufficient. So I put under the area where the lift posts are, I excavated some more, dug it out to 12 inches thick, and I put more rebar in it. So that area of the garage floor is 12 inches thick, which is unheard of.
Wow.
Also, I did something else. I knew that we were going to have compressed air, and I ran under the garage floor pipe, 3/4 inch pipe, so that I could have compressed air outlets popping up, every 12 feet or so. So I've got compressed air with industrial quick connect fittings, coming out of the concrete about 2 feet up in the air off the floor. And so I've got compressed air everywhere in the garage.
So that's really almost a auto service shop.
No, it is. It absolutely is an automotive service shop. It's got, a workbench, really heavy duty workbench. It's got industrial lighting, compressed air. It's got everything you could possibly want. A liquid parts washer for, cleaning, dirty, grimy parts in solvent, with a fireproof, lid. It's a real automotive shop. It's the same thing that you might find at a garage, where you have your car worked on.
Do any of the neighbors come over to use it or to have you help them?
Well, we've got some policies here. We don't let other people use our equipment. And it's not because, it's because they don't have that equipment. And if they don't have it, they don't know how to use it. And if they don't know how to use it, they can break it. So we'll do it for them. And we have become the go-to guys for having tractors worked on. It seems that there aren't many people that know how to do these things anymore. So if it comes to fixing the braking system of a tractor, the hydraulic brakes or the electrical system or the hydraulic lift system or the engines, the diesel engines or cars or trucks. I mean, that's what we have become lately, a shop that does that. And because I found that I can't find anybody that knows how to mount or balance tires, I bought a used tire balancing machine, and I bought a used tire mounting machine. So we have all of the things that a tire shop would have, and all of the things that a automotive shop would have: the presses, the lathes, all of that. So it's all here in the house.
Wow. I assume the lift can handle a tractor then.
Well, the problem with the tractors, they're tall. But a typical truck isn't that tall. But this lift will lift up 10,000 pounds. It's rated 10,000 pounds.
So not quite an A1, M1. No. You can't put a tank in here, but it will lift a dually pickup truck, which is, considered a pretty heavy pickup truck. And what's interesting? We have a vehicle on the lift almost all the time. Literally, there's something that we're working on that's on the lift. And it's really nice. And, so what does a lift cost? Maybe that's an interesting question. Well, we paid about $3,000 for our lift. And, there are a lot of Chinese manufactured lifts. I'm not going to get under one that's made in China. So our lifts are made, it's a U.S. company. It's probably the finest automotive lift ever made. And it's made by a company called Rotary. And if you go to Walmart and you have them work on your vehicles, they probably have Rotary lifts there. And it truly is the best. And the best only costs maybe 15% more than one that's just okay. So there's no reason to get one that's not the best, especially if you're going to stand under it. Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting, and I assume you have power backup, so if there's any interruption, you can handle with your on-site generators to keep everything going.
Well, we have a solar system, and we have a huge battery bank. It's about our battery bank would not fit in a pickup truck, nor would a pickup truck be able to hold the weight of it. It weighs about 4,400 pounds. I'm guessing it's about a little more than 8 feet long, about 4 feet wide, and about 3 feet tall. That is the size of our battery bank. And we have the inverter, and we have the charge controllers and the solar panels to power all the farm. And the automotive shop is powered by a solar system, including the compressor. Bert Bertonis is with us. He's in California, and he's interviewing me about how we've done things here in Missouri, making our own mistakes rather than buying into someone else's mistakes. Bert, back to you.
Yeah, so getting a little bit into kind of my wheelhouse with electronics, how soon do you start planning for the wiring? And I'm just going to throw out there, I can see, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different types of wiring that you might want to use. Obviously, your 110-volt power. Then we have Ethernet, so you might want to put Cat5 or Cat6 cabling through. Then, maybe home security for your alarm systems and cameras, sensors. And maybe I'll throw out there low voltage wiring for low voltage. So how soon do you start planning for that? And you just put in some conduits so you can run things in the future, or you just put a lot of wires in to start with? How do you start thinking and planning and doing that when constructing your home?
Okay, the answer is all the above. And so here's what we did. I bought a book, and I recommended it hour number 1. It's the Black & Decker home wiring book, and it's available on eBay. It's like $5 and change. It's called the Black & Decker Complete Guide to Home Wiring. They have another one for plumbing, and I suggest you get both of them. So for a little over $5 shipped, you can get one. And I just bought another one this morning so that I could, give it as a gift. It'll be used, but it's still the best book on home wiring. So in that book, it will teach you how you run wires, low voltage, high voltage, Ethernet, all of it. And so what we did here at the farmhouse is once we had the studs in place, now there would be the interior and the exterior studs. Then what we did was we figured out how we would be using those rooms. Okay, where the furniture would be, where the stereo speakers would be, where the lighting fixtures in the ceiling would be, etc. And then what you do is you nail the boxes, the electrical boxes on the wall. And I bought like 100 of one particular size wall outlet, wall switch box. And I bought the deep ones. You can buy the small 18 cubic inch, or you can buy ones that are a little bit bigger, and there's a lot more room in the bigger ones. So the bigger ones are going to cost you 30 or 40% more, but it's well worth it when you go to wiring. So here's what we did. I made a stick, and I said, okay, I put a piece of mark on the stick. Think of it like a yardstick. And I said about 18 inches or so, about 12 inches off the bottom of the stick would be where I would drill the holes for running the wire through the studs. At 18 inches would be the center line of the box for a wall outlet. And at 48 inches would be the center line of the switch boxes for light switches. And then my son and I nailed and screwed these blue plastic boxes wherever we thought we should have receptacles and switches. And we thought, okay, where are the lights going to be? So at night, while the house was studded, we would hang can lights at night to see what it would look like, how the lighting pattern would be. So we put these lights exactly where we thought they should go for our lifestyle. Meaning, where do you put the lights above the counter in the kitchen? Do you put them above the counter? Do you put them back, 3 feet from the wall? Well, you'll get shadows. So we experimented with that, and we figured out the best place for the lighting. And then, so the plan is you nail the boxes on the wall first. Then you run the wires. But what about the things that you mentioned, like low voltage? Each room in our house has 2 RG59U, which is coaxial cable for cable TV / video signaling. 2 in every room. And in that same outlet box is or a pair of Ethernet Cat 5e cables, and probably 2 telephone cables, which is 4-conductor, red, green, yellow, and black insulation on the telephone wire. So we have low voltage, we have Cat 5e for the Ethernet, we have coaxial for video signaling, cameras and things like that if we want to put them in, and Ethernet. And of course we have the receptacles for wiring. Now, how often do you put those boxes for 120 volt wiring? Well, there's a code for that. You can buy the code book and it'll tell you, or you can read the Black & Decker manual, and it will tell you about every 2 feet on counter space in the kitchen, or about every 6 feet on a wall. And then what you do is you figure out where you're going to put what furniture you have, or what furniture you might have, and you make sure you have enough receptacles. It's as easy as that. Then later on you run the wire. But what we didn't talk about was sub-panels and a distribution system. And so we did that. We don't have home runs everywhere. We have sub-panels all over the place. Probably 7 of those.
We can talk about that another episode.
Okay, well, if you want to do it in a couple of weeks, let me know. And we can talk about, detailed wiring. If that's something you'd like to talk about.
Sounds great. Right. Thanks.
Hey, well, thank you. Gosh, this hour went really fast. Jeez. Bert, thanks so much for calling in and interviewing me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Class will be back next week.